In this video, we will learn about a dice game called Ship Captain Crew and write Python code to make the computer play this game for us. In later videos, you will see how Monte Carlo runs will help us test different strategies, and we will also see how many Monte Carlo runs are sufficient using confidence intervals. So let us begin. Ship Captain Crew is a simple game played with at least 2 people using 5 dice. You roll the dice and first try to have the ship, which is 6, then the captain, which is 5, and finally the crew, which is 4. You need to have them in the exact order that I explained. The first ship, then the captain, and then the crew. You can roll up to 3 times, and in the end, if you hold 6, 5, and 4, your score will be the sum of the remaining 2 dice. If you can't build the ship, the captain, and the crew in the 3 rolls, then you will get 0. Okay, let's do some example rolls on an iOS application called Dice Roller. Note that this application does not have the game itself, but it allows us to roll dice. So we have 5 dice and tap the roll button. Now we have 2 6s, 1 5, 1 4, and 1 3. Let's keep 6, which is the ship, and then keep 5, which is the captain. You notice that the 2 dice that we selected now have a gray color, indicating that they won't be re-rolled. We still have 2 more rolls. If we get 4 in either of these rolls, we will have a final score greater than 0. Let's roll the remaining one more time. Now we have 6, 5, and 2, so no 4s. Let's roll one last time. Oh, no luck. So we have scored 0 in this pass. Okay, let's play another game. Alright. We again have the ship and the captain in the first roll. That's good. Let's see if we can get the crew in the next 2 rolls. No luck. Let's try again. And no luck again. So we scored 0 again. Okay, I promise this is gonna be the last game. Alright. Let's roll. Oh, we are lucky now. In one roll, we got the ship, the captain, and the crew. At this point, we can stop the game and score 5, or try our chances to roll 2 more times. Let's try one more time and see what we'll get. Okay, we scored 10 this time. We can continue, but let's stop here. I hope you get the idea. Now, let's write the Python code to represent this game on our computer. First, we opened the Jupyter Lab and created a notebook named Ship Captain Crew. Now, let's write the title here. Okay, Ship Captain Crew game, and make it a markdown. And add a line to import packages, namely NumPy and Matplotlib. Okay. Now, when it comes to writing this game, we have 2 options. So one way is to go top down, the other way is to go bottom up. Top down means you identify how you're gonna call the code in terms of like function signatures, class structures, etc. And these all have to be defined up front. Then you fill the inside of those structures later. However, if you go the other way, meaning bottom up, you can start with a working code that completes a specific task in the project, for instance, like rolling a dice. And then you gradually improve the code to make it complete. Either is fine, but we will go with the top-down approach because it's easier to follow. And here also we're going to use classes, not only functions, because classes are easier to organize the code. Okay, so let's give it a name. Say that main game code. Okay. And now up here we're going to write the code, and in the second line we're going to call the written code. So let's assume that for calling the written code we're going to come up with a structure. Let's say we say game equals to ship captain crew, and this is going to be the initialization of the class, and then we're going to call game.play. Okay, so this will be our main structure. So here what we have to do is define the class ship captain crew, and here inside the class we're going to have one method called play. Okay, one of the things we do here is rolling, so we're going to call a roll function here, and then again after rolling the dice what we do is evaluate. So let's create another method here. Let's call evaluate, and then after this we could roll multiple times, so we're going to come to that, but in the end after we do all these we're going to print the score. We're going to say that your score is this. Okay, so now at this point we somehow have an idea like what variables we need to define, right? So in order to define the variables, let's create a method called init. Okay, so this method will be called when we actually call the ship captain crew class here. So here we need to define the variables and set their initial values. Let's define a variable called score. So score initially 0, and here in the play part we're going to put the score there as well so that we don't miss that. Okay, then we're going to have dice, of course. So we're going to have self.dice, and initially let's assign this all zeros. Okay, so we call this with 5 zeros, and we're gonna keep dice values as a list. So for that we can either turn this into a list, okay, this way, or we could say something like this, 0 and times 5. To make sure that this is the right thing, just check here. So if we do this, you see that it creates a list with 5 elements, each with 0, and we can use it here exactly without providing another list. Okay, so now we have the ship captain and crew. So for that let's create a variable called status, and that status variable will be an array, p.array, and here we identify 3 elements and all will be false. So we have false times 3. So if you run this down here, you'll see that it assigns 3 falses. So this status variable identifies or holds the ship captain and crew in this order. So we say represents ship captain and crew. Okay, and finally we have up to 3 roles, right? So for that we need to identify a variable to keep track of that. Let's call this number of roles allowed. So initially 3 roles are allowed, right? Okay, so this is our initial function, and before playing the game let's call this init so that we make sure that all the variables are reset. All right, so now we have to put a logic here to make sure that we don't go over 3 roles. So let's say that while self that number of roles allowed is greater than 0, then roll and evaluate. Okay, so now we defined this while loop in the way that it allows only rolling and evaluating when we have roles left. Okay, now we need to define these 2 functions or methods. Okay, definition roll self. Okay, this is the first function, and the other one is going to be definition evaluate. Okay, and when we roll, we want to make sure that we only roll 5 minus ship captain and crew, whichever we have. So in that respect, we define a local variable here. Let's call it number of dice to roll. Okay, and initially we're going to have 5, but later we will have less than 5, because if we have like ship, we don't need to roll that again, so we have to exclude that. So in order to do that, we just create a sum of the status values, self.status. So this array with 3 values, if they're all false, then the sum of them become 0. If one of them are true, for instance, ship is true, then the sum will be 1, and then we will have 4 dice to roll. Okay. And now let's roll the dice. Initially we had 5 zeros up here. Now we're gonna roll the dice. So what we do here is, it's called np.random.randint. So randint allows us to generate a random values between 1 here. When we put 7, 7 is exclusive between 1 and 6. So, and the size of this will be equal to number of dice to roll. So if this is 5, then it's gonna give us 5 values. If this is 4, this will give us 4 values. Okay. And in the end, we want to keep this as a list, because it's easier to remove an element on the list than an array. Okay. So after doing this, let's make sure that we print dice values here. It's important when we're debugging. And okay, so dice. And also let's print the status here as well. Self.status. Okay. Now, after we roll one time, we have to make sure that the number of rolls allowed are decreased by 1. Okay. So minus equals 1. So we decrease it by 1. So it will make sure that we are not going into infinite loop here. Okay. So rolling is fine. Now we are going to go with the evaluation. Okay. So we know that this method will be called after rolling. So assume that we are now checking the status, ship captain crew. So the first element in that status is ship. So we are checking if ship is false, it means we don't even have the ship. So we have to build the ship first. Okay. Let's put a comment here. Means we don't even have the ship. So here we're going to check whether any dice that we just rolled has ship in it. In order to do that, let's make sure that we create some variables up here to hold the values for ship, captain, and crew. Ship is 6. Captain is 5, and crew is 4. Okay, so we came here. If we are now checking if dice has any of these values. If dice has ship, so if ship in self.dice, so this means the dice that just recently rolled has a ship in it, 6. So in this case, we come here and say self.status 0 equals to true. Okay. Now we need to remove that 6, that ship, from our dice, because it is already captured in the dice. If we don't remove it, there will be a bug. Self.dice.remove, and we remove self.ship. So we removed the first occurrence of ship. So we could have multiple sixes, but we're only removing one of them. Okay. And else, so even if we don't even have the ship in any of those dice, then we just return from this point. Okay. We break the code because we break the method because we don't even have the ship. Okay, so this was the case when we had nothing, and we checked for the ship and we marked it and removed it from the dice. But still, we need to check the following dice numbers. Okay, so if self status 1, so we are now checking whether we have the captain. If we don't have the captain, means we don't have the captain. Now we are going to check in the dice whether we have captain or not. So you could, at this point, you could simply copy and paste this code and then change from here, from the ship, yes, make it captain. And here we can remove the captain, but here status is 1. So do we have a captain inside in our dice? If yes, then we turn the status of captain to true, and then we remove that dice, the first occurrence. Okay, and move forward. Now the last thing we do is to check the crew, right? So if the status of the third element is false, we don't have the crew in this case. So we change this to crew and this to 2. This is crew again. So the last thing we do here, we'll check for the crew. And at this point, if any of these are not present in our status, even if we don't have a ship, captain, or crew altogether, the code will stop at one of these points. Okay. So if we are here, this means that the code successfully, so we successfully completed all 3 statuses. Now the remaining 2 is our score. So here we say, if we are here, that means the ship, the captain, and crew are all available. Now we need to calculate the score. The score is calculated by summing the remaining 2 values on that dice. Okay, so that dice. All right, so this is our game. Let's try if this will work. If in the first trial, if it doesn't work, that's fine, but we're gonna fix the problem. Okay, so now, so the ship captain crew object has no attribute number of roles allowed, so it's in the while loop. Okay. Oh, sorry. There's a mistake here. So init function is not called properly. Okay, self has to be inside the method. Okay, all right, let's try it again. Okay, now the problem with the evaluate. The evaluate takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. Okay, we forgot to put self in the evaluate. Okay, let's put that and let's try again. Okay, so we just tried one game, and in this game we rolled 5 dice. All values are between 1 and 6, which is good. Initial status is all false. Okay, now if we see this, 6 is ship, 5 is captain, and 4 is crew. So in the first trial we already got the whatever we needed. So the code should keep these 3, and then the other 2 will be re-rolled again. Okay, and as you can see in the second one, those 2 re-rolled, and we got 6 and 4, and you can see that the status turned into true. So we already won the game at this point, but we are looking for another roll, and the last roll is 2 and 1. In that case, the score is 3. So it looks like the code is working fine. Let's try it again. Okay, so initially 5, 6, and 4. Interesting enough. And initially all false. Cool. So we have all 3 needed in the first trial. And then the second one, roll to 2, roll to 2, and finally we got the score of 7. Well, looks like it's working. Okay, another time we have 5, 4, and 6 in the first roll, which is interesting. Roll it one more time. Okay, good. So now we have 6 only. Since we don't have 5, we can't hold 4. So we can only keep 6. Okay, and we keep 6, and the remaining 4 will be re-rolled. Okay, here they are rolled. We got 6, 1, 2, and 1. And as you can see, the status is true, false, false. We only have 6. And here in the last roll, we got 5, but no 4s. So we will end up with status true, true, and false. Remind you that the status is printed just before calling the evaluate function. Okay, so let's run it one more time. We have 6 here, no 5s here, 5 here, but no 4s, so we got 0. Good. Run it one more time. Okay, in the first one we have 6 and 5, so remaining 3 rolled. No 4s, no 4s. Okay, we got 0. 6, no 5s, 5 but no 4. Run it again. Okay, so initially we have 6 and 5, and then we got 4 here. So for the remaining 2, we re-roll again and get 6 and 4, which is 10. So our game works. So this concludes this video. In the next video, we're gonna do Monte Carlo runs on this code.